Why are we playing this game? In medieval Dynasty, you play as the mayor of perpetual mediocrity, where you're way too concerned about what clothes you have on
I should take some clothes off.
over your settlers that are never too satisfied to stay, but never too unsatisfied to leave. The perfect purgatory simulator. In reality, this is effectively a farming, hunting, city builder, and relationship simulator, where if you farm too much, your wife leaves you. Oh, and you die a lot. You should play this game if you can't afford the pilgrimage to the Vatican and crave an incredibly long and grindy game that forces you, in the early stages, to break your thumb if you're playing on the Xbox. Today we build a pub that relentlessly manufactures cherry wine and floods the economy. Those familiar with the game know that this is obtained later on and takes time to achieve. Those that aren't, stay tuned for an in-depth step-by-step tutorial on exactly what to do. To begin, we need to do quests to raise our dynasty reputation. Settlers will not come flocking to you without this, and we want them en masse to carry out our bidding. Not too many though, as fuck are they high maintenance. Constantly, oh, I want water, I want logs to burn, I want a house. Just shut the fuck up and feed the pigs so I can get manure to make fertilizer to farm wheat and onions to mass produce onion flatbreads to pay taxes to keep my farms to farm wheat and onions to mass produce onion flatbreads to pay taxes to keep my farms to farm wheat and onions to mass produce onion flatbreads to pay taxes and grind my production skill level. The pub is technically a production building and the game requires a production skill level of 10,000 in order to build one. The following program we're about to show is how I got to grips with the game and the adventures along the way. Our journey starts in the land of Oxbow. Waking up after being ambushed by bandits, we talk to the nearest person and arrogantly skip over every word he has to say. We have work to do. It's advised to carefully consider where you start your new settlement, so I summoned an irregular amount of brain power and decided to birth my region right here. I need a base of operations, so didn't hesitate to get immediately stuck into building my first house.
Come on in, you broke motherfuckers.
Equipped with an exceedingly comfortable spread of furs slightly raised from the ground with a 50% duplicate on the other side of the room, I assume for the use of a cuckold. It also comes with a stove to roast meats and a wooden chest to store my freshly cooked and still dripping food in. Ideal. I got to work on another house to store people I capture and force to work and breed in. I worked all through the night building another house, a well, a woodshed, and bludgeoned a rabbit to death completely by mistake. I was now ready for our first recruit.
Tits are too big.
One thing to note, Oxbow is dark and full of terrors.
What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
It's more likely than not that I will die. This means our first top priority is securing the bloodline. With little to no shame, I started to talk to the enemy, which was as complicated as you can imagine. Some things she loved, some things seemed to visibly disgust her.
That's an egg for me.
Nonetheless, she was more than keen to join the cause. I immediately assigned her to the woodshed because fuck cutting down trees, this is quite easily the most hazardous job in the game. I built a workshop, hunting lodge, and another house so I could source water with buckets and have someone else bring in some food so I can work on taking over the world. I then started the first section of the orchard, which will be the backbone of our late game income. Continuing to grow the settlement, I built food storage and a kitchen. I brought a few more lambs to slaughter too. While planning my deforestation operations, I quickly tried my hand at farming and realized that this is a much more sophisticated farming simulator than I could ever have imagined. I guess that can wait until next season. I had also ran into a bit of a food crisis. My hunters weren't bringing in nearly enough food to provide me with sustenance, let alone other people. I decided to test out the hunting simulation aspect of the game. I bought some linen thread from this absolute con man and made a couple of bows. A bow is an enormous power spike for us, as using a wooden spear was as good as using a fork to eat soup, yet I was still not even close to taking on a wolf. The most recent building additions really made me realise how convenient it would be if I never had to think about obtaining logs again. Their weight and the time it takes to get them, plus how fucking many I need to build things, requires deforestation on a scale of the Amazon between years 2002 and 2005. I amassed quite a bit of food, which should free up a good amount of time for the final solution. I plan to completely annihilate all greenery in this section of the map. Stage 1. Cut everything. In order to lock in here, I emulated the desired action required to be an effective repossession man, knocking on the door of all the poor people falling delinquent on their various extravagant purchases. Stage 2. Get married. Though I found this depiction wildly inaccurate, I have literally just spent hours cutting down all these trees. Stage 3. Trimming. To do this effectively, we terrorized and genocided the local bird populace.
Fucking pigeons from that, innit? Fucking yeah!
We measure the success of this stage by the total feathers collected with each trim. Stage 4. Logging. This part genuinely tested my ability to grind games. I think I made around 200 trips into the forest and back to the storage during the deforestation project. Stage 5. Pay taxes. Ah, sweet clearance. I can already smell the earnings potential from this land, though it didn't come without its hazards. And I had completely neglected the settlers in my village as I came back to find them all with malnutrition and auditioning for Save the Children adverts. The only logical fix was to hunt the biggest animal I could find. The bear. I designed a very complex strategy I like to call the hit and run, or in quite a few scenarios, the hit and foolishly stand ground. The final step to end a hard day's work is...
I am not putting up with this anymore. Putting up with what? I am out of here.
Dynasty secured. You may have noticed that every tree has left behind a stump. Left unattended, much like a parasite, the tree will grow back in a season's time. We cannot allow this to happen. Food. Mines. We can use these to up our production game quite substantially by getting ores and smelting them into metal bars and smithing the metal bars into armor. To set up a mine, we need a cave. I killed 2 bears to gain access to this cave to find out that I was not even a high enough level to place down a f***ing mine.
What the f*** is this?
In an attempt to get to that level, I took inspiration from Redacted and started my own fast fashion brand called Ransack and Undress, as for some reason all my character wants to do is take off his clothes.
I should take some clothes off.
To get the required materials, I was sent into the wild to hunt Vicent endlessly, similar to those working for Redacted. Once I returned, I was forced to manufacture winter clothing until my hands bled. In reality, I made and sold these for quite a lot of cash, which should keep the taxman happy for the next couple of seasons. I wanted 15 cherry tree saplings from my main dealer, and was absolutely scammed out of my hard-earned sweatshop money because how on earth does it cost that much? I have a question for you. No, this is not paid promotion, yet. How would you take on a Vicent? Do you wait for the last second to jump out of the way? No, because these things have a better turn radius than the fucking Mini Cooper. Do you retreat to water to try and deter their approach? No, because these things are ex-Olympic water polo players and will not hesitate to fucking drown you. Do you repeat step 1 in an effort to disprove Einstein's definition of insanity? No, because you will be launched into the river like the victim of any central London stabbing. Do you try a mixture of method 1 and 2? No, because... Scrambled eggs. The only working method here is to rinse and repeat what we did with the bears. Perfect. Moving on. Planting my 15 cherry tree saplings, I sweated profusely at the thought of how much I was running up the tax bill with each tree. As with everything, there must be a balance. Something needed to come off the bill. Carrots. It was year God knows what in game, and I had only just decided to get to grips with farming. As winter came and froze my cock off, I was only able to farm a vegetable capable of penetrating the cold hard winter grounds to spread roots. If you were to ask me back then why I did this, I couldn't quite tell you. It doesn't contribute to production and was, in retrospect, a diabolical waste of time. Acknowledging this, what did I do? Nothing, because there was a criminal lack of logs in my settlement and people were freezing to death. If it's not one thing in this game, it's 13 other fucking things. Back to logging. I took a break to taunt my son. This dad simulator is sick. I want to be the best role model possible for my son, and getting 7 different kinds of RSI using perhaps the worst designed controller and terrible control mapping was not the way forward. I needed a trusty stallion to make my journey shorter and alleviate the strain from my thumb so I could get back to playing Pokemon Go more comfortably. I went to the nearest town with my thumb on its last legs to find that not only is a horse stupidly expensive, but I would also need a stable, which, you guessed it, I wasn't a high enough level for.
What the fuck?
To scratch off this frustration, I started an onion farm, as there's a food item I can cook in the kitchen called onion flatbread. The image looked a little bit like garlic bread, so I got hungry and started to make hundreds. I hadn't actually realised that this would count towards my production score, but when I did realise, I was proud no longer hungry, and impeccably wealthy. I made a backpack to increase my carry weight, as carrying hundreds of carrots, onions and cabbages made trips much too frequent and was not part of the RSI recovery plan. I also made a pigsty and bought some hogs, as these fields aren't going to fertilise themselves. What followed was the creation of more cherry trees, more farms. I shot a bear so hard it fucking bounced, demolished a couple of buildings, a tree I cut down damaged my storage. I shot a bird out of the sky, hunted a viscent and another viscent, but with a cudgel because I was bored. Even more farms, and at this point I had just achieved the skilled orchardman skill, giving us more yield per harvest. At this rate we'll be drowning in cherries every summer. There is also an alternative to a stallion, which is to buy yourself a donkey. Not only will it transport you, it will produce manure which you can store in the taxman's house.
So long.
The result of grinding the farm and various mining activities was copious amounts of goods in storage, most of which was needlessly rotting away. I used my trusty mule to go to the village on crusades, selling missions, hoarding disgracefully ignorant amounts of cash. Vendors only have their inventories for one season before they're refreshed. Thinking long term, I needed another source of cherry tree sapling income. After visiting every vendor in the land, I found that only 2 vendors sold the saplings based here and here. My new season routine became charging down immediately to these vendors to raid their stashes. My mule was a victim of quite a few hate crimes on the way. Planning is one of my stronger traits. Then why don't you upload consistently, Themistocles? Shh. So I decided to draw out the rest of the orchard so I could get some sick shots for the video. Wow, look at this shot. Wow, and this one too. Wow, nice. Wow. Planting what I had hoarded of the cherry tree saplings, I placed too much trust in my completely unbranded winter jacket and died from severe hypothermia. Remember when I had completely devastated this entire portion of forest for the logs? Yeah, well, somehow the villagers are still without wood. God. Sake. To mitigate this, I bought firewood. Surely that lasts longer than logs, right? No. By some fucking miracle, I needed more wood. Innocently destroying more nature, I was threatened by a nearby wolf, which had a history of making me feel marginalized, but now I have a bronze axe, so let's see how this one plays out. During this time, I had also achieved the Master of Production skill by grinding my fast fashion brand. Despite achieving this, the dream of owning my own pub was still very far away. Additionally, I had reached a high enough level to build stables, which means I could finally retire my mule and upgrade to a stallion. Later on, I found that many of the cherries and onion flatbreads I had stowed away had turned to rot. This might sound like terrible news, but fortunately for you, I'm not a dickhead, and I know exactly what to do with this. With this, I can spend less money on tending to my crippling desire to mass produce onion flatbreads. Seeing as I was still far away from, in the eyes of the game, owning my own pub, I decided to place a mine. From slaughtering hundreds of bears in the same spot, I know that this is my closest cave. I dispatched the cave's guardian more enthusiastically than a white girl listening to Sabrina Carpenter, only to be rejected harder than Trump's trade tariffs. Why the fuck can I not place a mine here?
Why not, you stupid bastard?
No time to lose. Reciting my Vicent hunting era, I recall seeing another bear-guarded cave. I strutted my way over, pretending not to be freezing my tits off, and placed the mine down. I was quite at ease as the overly dramatic combat music had not started playing, so I assumed the bear was distracted. I was wrong. I was halfway up my horse by the time the bear had exacted its revenge. This bear clearly did not know the one universally known rule: do not get between a British man and his dream of owning a pub. Cherry trees. I sent my wife off into the mines, and the road to production continues, this time manufacturing various weapons and armor in hopes that the production gods honor my contributions. Riding back to the settlement after topping up the mine with tools, I saw a bandit camp had spawned in. Riding back to the settlement after topping up the mine with tools, I saw a bandit camp had spawned in and tried my luck, and was initially successful at halting their advancement and sniping one of their archers. After collecting myself, my wife walked past so nonchalantly and with so much aura I was forced to finish the job. I sprinted up the stairs to the final bandit, where he introduced me to the concept of lobotomy by crossbow. I had placed down more orchards and was heading back into town to pick up more saplings, where my horse and I needed an emergency nap. What is it you do for autumn? If you're in London, you're likely referring to it as silly season, where you go out constantly, spend your monthly salary on 1 pint of beer and fall over in the road or something, I don't really know. But if you're in Oxbow, it's harvest season, and this year, we've got the goods. I had harvested enough to cook up around 1,500 onion flatbreads, at which point the production gods had smiled upon my tributes and awarded me with the ability to build the fucking pub finally, holy fuck. I built my pub immediately and asked ChatGPT to name it for me. Give a name to a pub built by a drunk Brit, ex-sweatshop worker who has an acute obsession with cherries. Alright then. Now that the pub is built, we only need settlers to produce wood and everyone else can work on the orchards. What followed was me literally waiting for time to pass so that vendors' inventories would refresh and I could go and clean them out. I ride, I buy, I plant, I wait, I sleep, I wake, I ride, I buy, I plant, I wait, I sleep, I wake, I ride, I buy, I plant, I wait. My wife leaves me and takes my son with her.
Oh no! Anyway.
Hello there.
I sleep, I wake, I ride, I buy, I plant, I wait. It's done. At last, our goal is achieved. I wanted to try one more thing. I wanted to see just how many cherries I would yield from a single harvest. Jesus fucking Christ. Nice. I went to sell a couple of the cherry wines but drank one by mistake, which led to what I can only assume will be the same daily routine for the rest of my character's life.
Give me the car keys.
With the money made from these bottles, I felt that I had earned the right to be quite ignorant when paying the taxes. Well, there it is. This is kind of my third high effort video, kind of after the Rome and the Bannerlord one. This video definitely took quite a while. The game itself is long. It's a grindy one. Had a lot of fun playing it though, to be fair, so I definitely recommend. Even though Medieval Dynasty, no one's f***ing playing this game anymore. I don't know why I chose to play it, but either way, join the stream. I've just released the schedule. We're definitely streaming Rome Total War 2 at the moment. We're cracking on with that, declaring war on every faction challenge. Join the Discord too. I'm still struggling to use it. I have absolutely no idea how to use Discord, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. And lastly, leave a comment. Again, like, I'm not too bothered about subsliders. I feel like YouTube doesn't give a fuck about those still, so leave a comment if you enjoyed, and, you know, leave a like and shit. But I truly hope to see you in the next one.